Tangie Cousins. Tangie, welcome to the show.
Hi, Roger. Thank you.
Great to have you here. All right, everybody, I've already told you, Tangie is the Senior Account Manager for Foreclosures Daily, and she helped start the business. She's been with them for 14 years, and this is a company that researches properties at courthouses all across the country and provides information in the form of marketing lists for real estate investors. How am I doing so far?
You're doing fantastic. You
All
hit the
right.
nail right on the head.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about how the business started and what you guys are doing and what you're up to right now.
Okay. Well, we're a nationwide lead provider. We started the business back in 2004, and we started it from the ground up with about 67 researchers in Florida is what we did when we first started. We
Okay,
had
how many counties are in Florida?
67.
Okay, so one per county. Okay.
Yeah. And that's when we originally started. We just started with Foreclosures Daily. And as we started to expand over the years, we ended up expanding on a nationwide basis when we realized a lot of the counties move more towards the virtual basis. Most of the counties can be researched on a virtual basis now. So all of our data is farmed virtually. We have about 12 researchers, and all they do is sit in front of computers and farm data all day long across the entire nation.
Wow, what an exciting job.
So we're a nationwide lead provider, and we suit the needs of realtors, investors, and attorneys, even your basic first-time home buyer across America.
Okay, so how did you decide to pick the name Foreclosures Daily? Where did that come from? What's the thinking?
Well, because when we first started, the information is available to us on a daily basis. Every single day, each courthouse is inputting foreclosure information onto the daily calendars on a daily basis. So we came up with the name Foreclosures Daily because when we originally started the company, it was just foreclosure information only. So it was just list pendants, which you guys probably all know as a pre-foreclosure, and it was just auctions, and they were all listed on a daily basis. But over the years, we've expanded into about 25 other different types of leads. So now we are basically known as Clerk Data LLC, which is the parent company of Foreclosures Daily.
Say that name again. There was a little background.
Clerk Data LLC.
Clerk Data LLC. All right. So yeah, you went beyond foreclosures, but now let's just stay with the foreclosure for just a moment. You know, I've made my stock in trade buying foreclosures here in Georgia, and Georgia is kind of a unique animal. We're a mortgage state, but we're also a non-judicial state. Well, it's easy for me to say. And that's a little bit rare nationwide, but that makes our foreclosure process a little different. So in Florida, let's just walk me through the whole foreclosure process. If you're a homeowner and you haven't been paying your mortgage and the bank or lender decides to foreclose, what's the first thing that's going to happen? And then what's the next thing?
Okay, well, first of all, they typically let you be 90 days late before they start any foreclosure proceedings against you. And what they do is they'll the mortgage company will have an attorney file what they call an NOD, which is a notice of default. That's when the list of pendants is filed against the homeowner. It's basically a letter saying, hey, you're late on your payments. If you don't pay up, we're going to go ahead and start the foreclosure proceedings. It usually, on an average, takes about 3 to 6 months before that even happens.
Right. Now, I know what a list pendant means, but explain it for our listeners just in case there's some out there.
Right. A list pendant is a notice of default. It's basically when you're more than 90 days behind on the mortgage, the attorney goes and they file a notice of default against you. It's basically in all essence a warning to let you know if you don't pay up, you're going to have the foreclosure filed against you, and you are going to be sold at the auction.
Well, more generally, a list pendant is a notice of legal action. It's just let any potential buyer of the property know that a legal action is pending.
Yes, notice of default has been filed. Yeah. That is correct.
Although the mortgage companies don't use them here in Georgia, we do have list pendant here in Georgia. If you're involved in civil litigation about something else, and there's a possibility that the property may be used as a part of a judgment, then you can tie up the property. And so they've tied up the property. And now during this 3 to 6 months process, the attorney for the lender is doing what? Going before a judge?
So basically, after they warn them that the list pendants has been filed against them and the notice of default has been filed, they go through a process of the courts of filing paperwork. The homeowners have so many days to respond. If they acquire an attorney, the attorney actually has 20 days to respond on their behalf. And they can do a lot of things to stop the foreclosure process, like file bankruptcy and so on and so forth. it basically gives them time to get their stuff together.
Right.
I don't really know much of the process beyond that because that's really not my forte. My forte is the data collection process. And
Right. Yeah, and I've looked at foreclosures in Georgia. I mean, in Florida. I've looked in the paper and noticed that the sales are scattered throughout the month. So apparently, at some point, they get through the process. The judge rules, okay, we're foreclosing, and then they schedule the auction to be held at the courthouse steps. Do you know in the state of Florida whether or not there is a right of redemption? Can the people come back and buy their house back?
I do not know the answer to that. I'm sorry.
Okay. Yeah, I've been meaning to find that out, and I have enough to do buying the stuff that I buy in Georgia and other states across the Southeast. That I haven't actually learned the game at the steps in Florida, but I'll do that one of these days. All right. So now you mentioned that you went beyond the foreclosure and you collect other types of data to share or to sell to investors like me. So what are some of those other kinds of things?
Well, the biggest step that we made after opening Foreclosures Daily in the first 2 years is we opened what we like to call a sister company, and it was Probates Daily.
Okay.
Even though probates aren't really filed daily, they're typically, well, the courthouses do them once a week, sometimes twice a week. Every courthouse is different. But we opened a company called Probates Daily. And our next step was to sell probate data across the entire nation. And then what we found when researching probate data, such as states like Georgia, North Carolina, New York, there were certain states that was very hard to get probate data from. So what we started acquiring was pre-probates in certain states that we couldn't get the probates in. And what we found when we did that is a pre-probate is basically in an earlier status. It's 1 week after the death, but it's before the probate has been filed.
Yeah, I was going to say I didn't want to get into too much morbid humor here, but pre-probate, are you anticipating the time of death of the person?
No,
they're not dead yet, but they're really sick.
A pre-probate, the difference between a probate and a pre-probate. A pre-probate is 1 week after the passing of somebody, and we have verified that there's real estate attached. And then, of course, there's probate. That's also, we provide the data on a probate 1 week after the probate has been filed. So in states like Georgia, that's harder to get the data from. We would technically provide pre-probates, but we have figured out a way to get the probates in Georgia now, and we are providing probates in Georgia.
Interesting. All right, now all this sounds kind of morbid to the average listener. It sounds like we're preying upon the unfortunate circumstances of a family. And so we've got to go to a break, but when we get back from the break, I need you to address that first thing, okay? This is Roger Blankenship. I'm with Tangie Cousins, and we'll be right back.
My name's Pat K. Wood, and I'm from Cleveland, Tennessee, and I've been doing some flipping since about March of this year, and had started with a national program that was very expensive. I've spent today with Roger Blankenship learning about his program, and boy, do I wish I had met Roger first. He has a clear, concise program and many tools that are going to be very helpful in starting and managing a program, and the mentorship and leadership and coaching that he's offering are invaluable. Thank you so much, Roger, for your time and sharing with us.
And we're back. The show is Flipping America. I'm Roger Blankenship. We've got Tangie Cousins here, and I teach people how to make money in real estate. And today we're talking with Tangie, and she is telling us about the service that she provides for real estate investors, which is providing data lists of people who might have a house that they want to sell. And when we went to the break, and I'm sorry we had to cut it off so abruptly there, we were on this topic of someone has died and there's property to sell. And it seems a little bit heartless, and it seems a little bit like we're ambulance chasers when we approach somebody in these circumstances. So how do we deal with this from the emotional standpoint first, and then we'll talk about the logistics of getting your list.
Okay, so first of all, a lot of people have a tendency to feel, like it's preying on, the unfortunate, like you said, and I want to touch on that. It's real important because a lot of people have the wrong idea about that. When a person has passed and there's a property that's been left to a loved one, they didn't just inherit a property. They inherited HOA fees. They inherited taxes. They inherited all these extra bills. Most of the Americans today can only afford one mortgage. I'm sure you would agree with that. Most
Yeah.
people can afford one mortgage. So when a loved one has passed on, they have the property, but it also is a burden sometimes because they're having a hard enough time supporting their own home, let alone having to support someone else's. So the average investor comes in and they think, oh, I don't really want to prey on the people who have passed and that inherit a property. I feel like I'm preying on the unfortunate. It's actually the opposite. You're actually a knight in shining armor to these people, because when you send a letter out, you know, hey, I'm expressing interest in your property and I understand you may have a property for sale. If you do, I would like to purchase your property. You know, I can close fast, cash, as is in less than 30 days. You can even leave the unwanted items in your property. You don't even need to clean, update, rehab, repair. So when they get this letter, they're thinking, oh my God, I don't have to pay for this mortgage anymore. This person's offering to buy my property, give me cash right now, and get me out of debt and having to try to pay 2 mortgages. They're actually a blessing in disguise. So, oh no, it's not preying on the unfortunate at all. These investors are actually helping people. You know, and I hate it when these investors have a bad name sometimes because people think they're preying on the unfortunate, when it's actually just the opposite. You're not. You're actually helping these people, and they're stopping them into going into foreclosure and what might be a disaster for their family. You know, they may end up losing this property that their mom and dad worked all their lives for into foreclosure, rather than reaping the benefits of the money that the parents wanted them to have, which is why they left them the property to begin with. I hope that clears some of that up, Roger.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. That's a good answer for it. Okay, so let's back up a minute. We're going to get back into the details in just a minute, but let's back up and, you know, let's lift this plane off and get up to a few thousand feet, and let's get to know Tangie a little bit, because my guess is when you were like in the 5th grade and you had career day and the policeman and the fireman and somebody's daddy was an insurance salesman and they all came to school and had career day, and you're sitting there thinking about what you want to be when you grew up, I bet you were not thinking about data analyst. So
No.
when you were small, what did you want to be when you grew up?
Honestly, you know, the basic, the model, singer, you know, anything that made me become a star.
Oh, okay. So yeah, you wanted to be up in front of people. And
Yeah,
yeah,
basic.
I noticed you. I've seen you in front of a group, and yeah, that's a natural thing for you. I see that.
Thank you.
All right. All right. So how's your singing voice?
Well, you know, it's not too bad. I do have a karaoke machine, you know, I can,
Well, maybe we'll have you sing a little number before we get off the show here today.
no.
Okay. Of course.
I'd have to have a few first.
Well, you know, this show's being recorded during the daytime, so it may be a little early for that.
Yeah.
All right. Now,
5 o'clock
okay.
somewhere.
So life happens, and so you grew up and you came upon this opportunity. Tell us a little bit about how the opportunity came about and how the company started, because you were there right at the start of this company.
Yeah. So what actually happened is I was reading an ad in what we call the Ledger in Polk County. And the Ledger is a newspaper article where people list jobs and postings. And I come across a job for a sales representative for selling data, for selling foreclosure information. And I responded to the article via phone. And the gentleman that owned the company, his name was Erwin Cantor. And he actually ran a company called Foreclosure Hot Sheet. That's Erwin Cantor, and he ran Foreclosure Hot Sheet. And what they did is they printed the book on a weekly basis. We didn't even do online, so it was back in the ancient days. So we actually printed books, and they hired me on the spot the second they met me, on the phone even. They hired me before I even got there. And so I went there and I met him and his wife in their beautiful home in Treasure Island, Florida. And we created a business relationship, and my job was to go to courthouses and spark up business at the courthouses with the current investors that were standing there auctioning, bidding on auctions.
Right.
So that's how we started. And within the first year, we merged with this online company called Foreclosures Daily that they had just started as well. So we had the book, they had the virtual, and we merged as one bigger company and just created Foreclosures Daily giant. Within the first couple of years, we were rated, I think it was 35th in this magazine of the best investment companies around. And then we also actually, one of the owners was nominated, I think it was 10th in Tampa for the top businessman of the year. And we created this multi-million-dollar company within a couple of years of being open. And we took the book and faded the book out within the first year and moved to an online stance only.
So that was 14 years ago, and the rest is history.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, and so now you're a big shot in the real estate investing world, and you're in command of a lot of people and a lot of data that gets out there to investors. And so we're going to circle back around to the investors because we got about maybe 30 seconds here before we got to go to the next break. So just give us a quick rundown on all the different lists and so forth that you guys have.
Well, we have about 25, but I'll name the top few, which are
Okay.
the most important. So we've got the probates, pre-probates, inherited leads, auctions, list pendants, absentee owners, code violations, evictions, tax lates, distressed homeowners, and we also customize leads for you too. So if you want a homeowner that's, within a certain age range and criteria range for income, loan to value or equity, we can pull that type of leads as well.
All right, that's good. Well, we're going to get into the mechanics of this when we come back from the next break, okay? I'm Roger, this is Tangie, and we'll be right back.
Peter Faulkner here. I attended a one-day flip starter training session led by Roger Blankenship, and I was amazed to see what has happened in Roger's life in the last 15 or plus years, flipping over 800 houses. And in this one-day training, he told how he did it and what the pitfalls, the blessings, the benefits, and how to do it. And I was so impressed with how well organized and how smooth the training went today. If you're tempted or encouraged to go, go. It was not a bad price. And if you get a chance to do it, even just to consider investing. But I just want to thank Roger for a great day today and appreciate what he's doing. Thank you, Roger.
And we are back. This is Flipping America. I'm Roger Blankenship, your host, and I teach people how to make money in real estate. And today we're talking lists because inventory is the number one need for real estate investors everywhere. People who want to buy houses or properties, they need inventory. And it's a tough market. It's a hot market. If you listen to this show enough, you know that the market is up everywhere in America except Columbia, South Carolina. And we'll make jokes about Columbia later on, but right now we're going to talk, and don't get me wrong, folks, you can still make money even in Columbia, South Carolina. It's just not the same market that it is everywhere else. And we've talked about that on previous shows. But now we're talking about getting these lists and using them. All right, so now, when a person wants to buy a property this way, they're going to buy a list from you, and they're going to, let's say we're going to do an absentee owner list, and we're going to confine it to one zip code in, let's say Tallahassee. Does that sound reasonable?
Mm-hmm, absolutely. We can tailor by zip code for those types of leads.
Okay, so if we're going to get a list of maybe 500 absentee owners, can you sell 500? What's the quantity you recommend?
So we do a minimum actually of 500. So you hit the nail dead on that one. So we do a minimum criteria of 500 for the list that they have to quantity they have to order is at least 500, and they can tailor it per county, per zip code. They can tailor it the original loan amount, bedrooms, baths. They can be real specific with those types of leads. And on the absentee owners, you can choose whether you want in-state or out-of-state. Depending on where you are, the situation changes. For example, if you choose Florida and you choose in-state leads, you're going to deal with more like an investor like yourself or a landlord or snowbirds.
Probably so.
Now, yeah, and then if you choose out-of-state, you're definitely targeting the snowbirds because then you're dealing with people who own a property in Florida, but they don't live in Florida, they live in another state. There's benefits to both sides. If you deal with an investor landlord situation in Florida, the benefit is you are reaching people who have a property for sale, possibly property for sale.
Yeah, I have a little story about that. Lesson learned the hard way. I've liked absentee lists for a long time and used them in the Atlanta area where we are. And then I visited Highlands, North Carolina, and decided, boy, I really like this town, and I'd like to flip properties here. And silly me, I went and bought an absentee owner list for Highlands, North Carolina. And it was mainly people who live in the Atlanta or Charlotte area, and they like their house, they intend to keep their house. It wasn't a very promising list because we were basically buying absentee owners in a second home community. So maybe that didn't work very well there. But I've kind of had a bias toward absentee owners. So let's just stay with this for a minute, because what I want to do is I want to think this through from the mindset of someone who has never done this before. So they buy this list and they get 500 names from you. What format do these names come in? Do they come like a CSV file or something?
Well, we typically send them in an Excel, but we can send them in a CSV if they ask.
Well, we're going to take a CSV and import it into Excel, but if you send me a spreadsheet, that's even better. Then I've got to figure out how to merge that and print some letters and print some envelopes up, right?
Yes.
Okay.
You want to do a mailing campaign.
All right. Do you do any coaching as far as what to say and how often to contact them or anything like that?
We actually our company themselves don't do any coaching as far as, how to market to them. I actually do the coaching as far as marketing to them. I've been dealing with investors for 14 years, and I've learned a lot of the do's and don'ts of marketing. I've heard some of the best and worst stories, so I put that all together and made a nice little 3 to 6 step mailing campaign for people. So I absolutely am coaching.
Okay. So this is a separate product, a training thing that you do?
No, this is something I do for free to help you understand how to utilize our list.
Wow.
If I don't teach you how to utilize our list and teach you how to be a proper investor, you aren't going to reuse our list. And my benefit and goal is to get you to come back to use our services. And by doing that, I need to make you successful. So that's something I provide for free.
All right. I've got 500 names in where did we say, Tallahassee?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I got 500 names in Tallahassee. And so I got them all and I printed out the letters and I basically just did a simple letter that says, hey, we're looking to buy houses in this particular area. We have cash, we can close fast. If you would like to sell your house to us, please call this number. And then some people are going to call me, yes?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
All right. How many do you think on average?
Well, the national average response rate is 1.5%, but I've got people getting 3 to 5 in absentee owners and probates and stuff like that.
Why would you say that is? Why is your average higher?
Well, because the average that I'm going by is the national average for foreclosures for people who are in list pendant status. You're competing with hundreds of other people doing the same type of marketing. When you deal with a more targeted list like probates, pre-probates, absentee owners, inheritance, divorce leads, those are targeted lists that people fear to touch so much because they think that they can't do it because they think that they don't know how. I teach people that you can market to any list, and it doesn't matter if you know how to do the list or not. Your job is to know your job, not their job.
Okay. All right. Now, so I send this out and I'm going to have a 3% response rate, which means 15 people have called me, right? What percentage of those do you think I'll close into a deal? I'm just trying to help your customers do the math.
I completely understand what you're asking. I don't have an actual percentage on closes because not everybody calls me back to tell me what happened with every list that they use as far as what happened with each one. Some people will fall off the face of the earth after they try a list, and then a lot of people do call me back, but we don't really have averages on percentage rates, just on the mail outs and response rates.
Okay. Do I only mail to this list one time?
Okay, so most lists you're going to mail to 3 to 6 times, but the absentee owners is not really a list like that. An absentee owner is okay to just mail them once, maybe even twice, but typically you don't have to stay after them like you do the people that are in list pendants and probates because they're not in a situation to where they're on a time crunch. When you're dealing with a foreclosure, they're on a time crunch, but they could be in a foreclosure for 6 months to a year. So those are good to market to for multiple times. When you're dealing with probates, the average probate takes 2 to 4 months to complete. So, you want to stay after them for about 6 months. But when you're dealing with an absentee owner list, this is a person who's owned their house. There's no reason to market to them over and over and over and over. They're not on a time thing,
Yeah. Well, I guess maybe repetition sometimes gets the message across and first time you see something. So these people are getting a lot of mail from people, right? If they're on one of the foreclosure lists.
The list pendants, the list pendants. Oh yeah, that's completely overworked. Every beginner in the entire nation typically starts with a list pendants, and they start marketing to list pendants. I sell more probates and pre-probates than I do list pendants any day, all day, which, by the way, is the least competitive list out there. I'd love to talk about that in the next segment too, overcoming people's fears and how to work lists like that and why they have fear.
Okay, let's do that. And I guess you're watching the clock and we are right up on a break. So let's go ahead and take that break and we'll be right back in just a moment.
Sounds great.
So we're talking about the renovation you did in Macon, River North Boulevard.
Yeah.
Right. And that was by far one of the best renovations I've ever seen. the house in Macon, Georgia.
That's
It's
great.
an outstanding renovation. Very
Thank
good.
you.
Y'all did it was first class, high quality, and y'all did stuff that a lot of people don't do.
Yeah, you know how small that kitchen was
Right.
with the orange
That was
countertops?
gorgeous.
And the idea to pull that
Y'all
wall
ripped it
out,
out, opened that wall up.
that made the house do.
Y'all did a lot of great stuff. Great
Thanks.
stuff. Good renovation.
All right, thank you. All right, well, we went to the break. We were talking about overcoming fears, and you had something that you wanted to say about that. And so just dive right in.
Okay, so the biggest thing I hear when people talk about using our list is that, Tangie, I want to do probates so bad, or pre-probates, or inheritance, or divorce leads, but I just don't know how. I've never gone through the process. I don't know the process. So what I teach people is you don't need to know the process. You don't need to know how to do a probate or how to do a divorce lead. The person going through it needs to know that. You need to know how to do your job, which is send a letter, run comps, answer the phone, go over, assess the rehab and repair damage and value, figure out whether you're going to wholesale, fix, flip, sell, whatever you're going to do with the property, sign a contract, go to closing. That's your job. If you know your job, you can work any list in the whole world. If I'm your neighbor, let's put it this way, let's boil it down to the ridiculousness. If I'm your neighbor, Roger, and you've known me for 5 or 10 years, and you see me outside, and you know that my husband and I got a house, right? Whether it's divorce, foreclosure, absentee owner, it doesn't matter. The bottom line is I have a house, and you want to know if I want to sell it. You're going to come across the street. You're going to approach me and say, hey, Tangie, did you guys want to sell that house you guys got? You're not going to run out and take a $10,000 training course to figure that out, are you? No. I tell people, listen, if you can approach me outside my door, what makes you so scared to send a letter 10 miles across town saying the same thing? Hey, I'm just wondering if you want to sell your property. People are so funny. They put themselves in this little box and they can't go outside of it unless they think that they know how. But I teach people you don't need to know how. You need to know your job. Now, if you want to go out and spend $10,000 on training, by gosh, do it. But do it to train yourself on your job, not their job. It's their responsibility to know how to go through their probates, their divorce, whatever their situation is. So that's what I teach people in the classes and stuff that I teach for free on how to use our list.
Yeah, and of course, I recommend some training and a mentor because in order for us to know how to do our job, you need to know how to run comps, you need to know what comps are, and you need to know how to estimate repairs. And of course, that's part of what we teach.
Absolutely, and I completely agree. I think every person out there should go to real estate clubs and surround themselves with as many people as they can of like-minded individuals. And I think everybody should have a mentor, everybody, to do their job, not somebody else's though.
So I had a client one time who wanted to do his own marketing letter, and I said, sure, go ahead. And it was awful.
Oh, God.
I mean, not only could he not spell, he couldn't put words together in a sentence that made any sense. And I guess I take it for granted that this is not everyone's cup of tea. So do you provide any content for people to put in their letters, or do you do any fulfillment? The actual mailing, like a done-for-you service?
What a great question, and just about every client asks me that. We don't actually do the fulfillment of the mailing campaign as far as marketing to the people for them. We do refer them out to a company to do that for them. However, I provide marketing, and I also teach what to put in there and what not to put in there. And the biggest advice that I can give every listener is to only put positive reinforcements in your letter. Only fix problems, find solutions. When somebody reads a letter, you don't want anything in there that's going to be negative. For example, when you send a letter to a probate, you don't say, my deepest condolences and sympathy. That's terrible. My wife and I have been investors for 10 years, and we're trying to build our portfolio for our retirement. Those are terrible things to put in letters. I actually had somebody do that, and I said, oh my God, you're not only telling them how you're going to profit off their property and their unfortunate situation, but you're offering condolences and sympathy on somebody you don't even know. You never put anything negative in the letter. Don't talk about their foreclosure. They know they're in foreclosure, and they know that's why you're marketing to them. Don't talk about the fact that somebody died in their letter. Listen, your letter needs to be simple, basic, right to the point, period. Talk about what you want to do for them, what you can offer them, how you can help them. That's it. Nothing else. Short, sweet, right to the point. Very generic.
Okay. Well, in the few minutes that we have left, I want to get to the $5,000 question, or maybe it's a $64,000 question. I don't know. But What kind of budget? Now, I'm not asking you about specific pricing for your products because that's going to vary according to quantity and that sort of thing. And you've got your programs. First of all, while we're thinking about it here, tell everybody how they can find you. What's your website?
So if the website is www.foreclosuresdaily.com. But if they contact me directly and say that they heard your show, Roger, I will give them 20 to 30% off just for mentioning your name.
Okay, so hey, Roger is the coupon code.
Roger Blankenship. If they say that in Flipping America, they're going to get 20 to 30% off.
Okay. Now, overall, if I wanted to start taking your list and do a plan, like build a business around this sort of thing. I know I've got printing and postage and some sort of phone answering thing, whether it's going to be me or service or so forth. But what kind of budget should I be looking at to really commit to this to make it happen?
Well, if you're going to, let's say that you're going to purchase an average list, the minimum commitment with us is going to be around $500. And, like with the probates, you're going to get up to 25 leads a week, which is 300 pieces of mail a month. The average mail is going to cost anywhere from $90 to $1.10 each. So, you're looking at $500 for our list, and then you're looking at another $600 in marketing, maybe $100 to print your letters and envelopes. And that marketing includes, you're looking at about $1,200.
Yeah,
somewhere around there. But
per month.
Well, no, that's for the whole 3 months. That's a 3-month commitment. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, so if you were to purchase probates for 3 months, it's going to be around $599 with Roger's discount. It's normally like $7.
Okay. So it's $1,200 for 3 months, and boy, if you just get even one deal out of that, you have way more than paid for it.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be that. You could just pay the $500 commitment for our services and do the mailing yourself. People pay their nieces and nephews $50 to do their letters once a month, and they have beautiful penmanship. We recommend handwritten letters. And I also wanted to tell you something very important too, Roger. All of our probate leads and stuff like that are weekly and fresh and farm for real estate. The biggest thing I want to tell your listeners is that if you purchase a probate list, and a lot of companies selling them quarterly and they're not farming for real estate. If somebody gives you 300 leads all at once, beware, because they're not being farmed for real estate. 300 people will die in 1 week, but only 5 to 7% of those people will have real estate attached. We are the only company I have ever found that will go through each one of those and pull out the ones with real estate attached only.
Well, that's good. That's a valuable service. All right. So tell us again, your website, if you got a phone number for people to call.
Yeah, the website is www.foreclosuresdaily.com. But if they call me directly and mention your name or Flipping America, they will get 20 to 30% off at 813-563-0005, extension 2, Tangie Cousins.
Say it again,
813-563-0005, extension 2.
Okay, and we've got that number here too. All right, Tangie, it's been great having you on the show. Thank you so much for your time, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for having me. Have a wonderful day.